Hi, everybody. This is Coach Tina, and I got the inspiration this morning to do a podcast on parenting. So, I had my first child very young. I got pregnant with my son when I was in my first year of college. I dropped out, and then I had my second child 2.5 years later when my birth control method failed. And then later on, I had my third child when my birth control method failed. So I have three children. But parenting has been one of the most wonderful things in my life. And I didn't go into the job knowing how to do it, like most people. But some people get a lot of information when they grow up about how to be a parent. And I didn't get a lot of information about how to be a parent. So I had to kind of learn as I went. And what I know to be true is that when I met my son, right after he was born, I thought I knew what love was, but I instantaneously felt this love that I'd never experienced prior to that. I just fell head over heels in love with him. And I feel that way about all three of my children. However, I learned something really important. Parenting has been an incredible teacher for me. And why? The reason why is because when you really, truly love someone, you are transformed by that experience. And so it all went well when they were younger, and I would plan activities, and we would do didn't have a lot of money because I was putting myself through school, but we would go on bike rides and go to parks, and I would pack lunches, and we just had and I had a nice community of friends, and we did a lot of fun things together. When they became teenagers, I had to learn something that no one taught me, and I don't really even think it's very common when I look out in the world. And I've sponsored a lot of women. And I do not see this as a very common thing. But what I learned is that when you really love your children, at some point, probably in their teens, you have to start allowing them to, actually it starts sooner than that. You have to allow children as soon as it is age appropriate to learn from their choices, good or bad. There's a great book called Parenting with Love and Logic, if any of you want to check it out. And it was really helpful for me. And what I learned was that I really needed to allow my children, because I love them, to learn from their choices, good and bad. And that was not easy. My son, for example, was an incredible athlete, and he started using drugs and alcohol in high school and started to do poorly in school and in sports even. And he eventually dropped out of both. And I got a lot of calls because he was such an amazing athlete, the parents of the other team members really wanted me to force him to shape up. And they would call me because they thought it was going to be, they were very invested in the outcome of the team doing really well. And he was a huge part of the team. So I remember one of those parents in particular telling me that if I didn't make him change his behavior, it was going to ruin his life. And I said, I actually disagree. I was raised, and this is when I learned something really important. I was raised in an environment that was very much about managing image. How we looked to other people was the most important thing. And what was really going on was supposed to be kept a secret. But how we looked to people was the most important thing. And I didn't realize until I had my own children that that is not, in fact, love. Image management and wanting my children to play a role that I assign is not love. Real love is you want to be there, you want to offer guidance, but what you're really trying to do, especially when they are in their teens, is you gotta pass off the baton to them. They've got to realize that it is in fact their life that they're living. It's not an extension of my life, not an extension of your life. It's in fact their life. And if I act like it's my life, then I'm harming them and I'm distracting. And a lot of times people vicariously live through their children. They are, and so it's really important that we all maintain full, useful, purposeful lives of our own, so that we don't fall into the trap of making our children our purpose. When they're younger, I think it's more relevant, it's more fitting that raising small children is an all-consuming thing, and especially if you're doing it on your own and you're paying the bills. That's an all-consuming thing. But once they get older, they need to, at every stage, they need to be allowed to learn from their choices. And if there are consequences, they need to be the ones who experience or suffer or actually enjoy the results of what they've done. That was something I did not really understand because, and I don't know if you've heard this word enmeshment, but a lot of parents and children get enmeshed to the point where you can't really tell, who's who. You get lost in this big blob. So anyway, it was really a shocker to me, and really the thing that taught me this, and it's a miracle, is the fact that I loved them. I loved them more than I cared about looking good. I loved them more than my image. I loved them more than any of those things. So I knew that things might get kind of tough, but it was very important that they experience the consequences and successes of their choices. So yeah, I had to watch my children. My son dropped out of school and sports, and he is now, however, an incredible father and husband to my two wonderful grandsons who are 21 and 15. So he's an incredible dad. And my daughter is now both of my daughters, incredible human beings. My daughters are in their early 30s, early 40s, and they travel the world, actually, hike Machu Picchu, They've been to Bali. They're planning another adventure soon. Um, and they work. They're responsible people. They pay their bills. They have full, um, wonderful lives. And mostly they're, just amazing human beings. All of them are. But I really had to learn that that whole thing about managing image and being first and foremost concerned with what do people think about me and what do people think about my children, which is some extension of me, is very destructive to everyone involved. And like I said, I've sponsored about 500 women, and I've seen it over and over and over again. The people were raised in homes where they were thought of or treated as if they were an extension of their parents, and that they needed to present a good image for the family. And that really blurs, that whole idea about codependency, that really blurs boundaries. And it enables people, and it confuses them around just whose life they're living. So that's what we have to remember all the time, is if I'm getting in the middle, I'm making it confusing. I mean, they've got to know, when I do this, it hurts me. Or when I do this good thing, it's good for me. But if it turns into, if I do this thing and it hurts mom or it hurts dad, then there's a real disconnect there. And it's going to take them a very long time to learn and make the connection that their life is in fact their own life. And unfortunately, a lot of those people that have been raised that way will go on to do that as adults. They will be so concerned about what other people think that they might get to the end of their lives and feel like, I haven't even lived the life that I wanted to live. I've been living the life that I thought would make me look good. And so, or make me likable or whatever. And that's what I hear all the time in the sponsorship I do with codependents, is that most of us have been raised in homes where people were trying to manage their image. They were looking to get attention. They were looking to get approval. They were competing and comparing. They were very concerned with managing their image. And it can be perpetuated generation after generation after generation. And it isn't a loving thing to do to our children. What is loving, again, is to allow our children to suffer the consequences of their own actions, and to and to enjoy the outcome of their positive actions. That is what we're here to do as parents, and it needs to start as early as logically possible, so that our children turn into these autonomous, human beings who are actually feeling responsible for their lives, and therefore they have the sense that they have some power over the course and direction of their lives. And I just thought I would share my thoughts about that with you. Talk to you again soon.